Welcome to the church office. My name's Gavin Smith and I've got the opportunity today to talk to Gavin. It's the Gavin and Gavin show, and Gavin, you are behind ChurchSuite, and it's great to be able to come and interview you today and find out a bit more.
Fantastic to have you with us.
So we're sat in your new offices. Staff have been working from home and not here.
Yep.
And I'm surrounded by, what are these, party poppers?
Yeah.
And tell me about these party poppers. Tell me what all this means.
A variety of different things just to try and make the office a bit fun. So, I mean, the party poppers are, we celebrate every single customer, every single new customer. So, there's about 2,200 churches who are using ChurchSuite today. And each one of these party poppers is our way as a team of just celebrating that. And we've got the globe, which is next to you, just with pins in it of where we've got different customers around the world and stuff. So
I love it.
Yeah, it's just a way of celebrating what God is doing through us, which is fantastic.
It's great. And Gavin was telling me that the fun of the competition between who gets to pull the party popper and the fun that goes on behind the scenes of celebrating a church that's joined, and I just love that. Developers having fun, I can imagine that's going to be great to watch. And then the throwing into the vases, I just think is brilliant, a quirky way to do it. So
it's just a way of getting the team together, making sure that we're celebrating every single, because any church that comes and starts using it, that's an achievement, and that's something we love. But also making sure that we're having fun as a team together, which you can lose that if you're just focused on your own little area, aren't you?
Yeah, and I love that. And I know there's lots of people that use ChurchSuite, and if you don't use ChurchSuite and you're picking up this podcast or this video, then Gavin, give me like a minute or 30 seconds of what is ChurchSuite. How would you describe it to somebody?
It fundamentally is a church database system, but one of the things that we are hugely focused on is just trying to make sure that we're not just gathering data for the sake of it, but we're trying to help churches put that data to good use in the context of discipleship. And so, we know that people come along to events, and that's an opportunity for discipleship. People serve on rotas, and that's an opportunity for discipleship. People join home groups, and that's an opportunity for discipleship. So everything in the system is geared around helping churches do church well, but also making sure that they can access data and statistics that help them in that discipleship process, and as they're working out new programs that they might be rolling out at church, new courses, whatever it might be. It's about the people and trying to help churches manage their people and data well.
Absolutely love it. And Christchurch has been using ChurchSuite for a number of years, and it has been such a helpful tool, not just to those serving behind the scenes, but also as a kind of pastoral tool. And then as a church member being able to use it. So there are different sides to it which all work together brilliantly. So a big fan of it, and great opportunity to come and talk to you. And the church office loves and is fully behind ChurchSuite. And it is just a wonderful toolkit to be able to use as a kind of church administrator. And I've been able to do that myself. Gavin, tell us a little bit about how this all started, because having met you and having coffee with you before we've done this, you love your local church and you want to see churches thrive. And really that's the heart behind this software. And that's what really comes across really well. So how did you get this idea, and how did it all start?
Yeah, so we're here in Nottingham, and I came to university here. And the reason I stayed in Nottingham was because of my local church. I just loved it, and I wanted to just continue serving it. And one of the ways that I was serving it, I was working part-time for the church, and I was building some systems for them, which were all entirely focused on the way that church worked.
Okay.
And so over time, different churches saw those and said, "Oh, can we have those?" And it was like, "Well, no, they're just for my church." And then I did dabble of like trying to customize what I'd done for my church for someone else's church, but it was always complicated. And at that time, I just felt like God was putting on my heart that there's a need that I've got the skills to be able to build some of this stuff. And there's a need within churches, so
definitely,
do something about that. And kind of the idea sat with me and kind of festered for a while, and then eventually Easter 2011, I got round to actually starting to build something, and that thing is what has now become ChurchSuite. So it took a number of years of kind of seeing what was going on in the church. I guess God just growing my love for the church, capital C church, and then however many years of actually just consistently developing it and building the team, and trying to support churches as best we can.
And it really does that. It is a brilliant toolkit behind the scenes to do that. So started off in 2011, kind of defining moment, and you've kind of been doing pastoral ministry, and you've been doing a web development stuff, and you kind of bring them together and it's kind of the birth of ChurchSuite. And how many churches now are you serving?
There's about 2,200 churches who are now using ChurchSuite, which has blown every idea I could ever have had. Like I remember there was a time early on in ChurchSuite where I said to one of my friends, I imagine it'll top out about 300 churches. I can't really see more than 300 churches. And my goodness, like what God has chosen to use us to do is, it's humbling. It really, really is.
Yeah, that is wonderful. And has there been defining moments on this journey where you've experienced incredible grace, or on the they're kind of defining moments in the history of ChurchSuite? What are some of those? Yeah,
I mean, they're all over the place. I think so. A defining image that my pastor has talked about numerous times is that we as Christians are like a surfer, and in many ways, we need to kind of sense what God is doing, and jump on that wave and let Him do the work, taking us where we need to be, and that's the image that I've tried to follow year after year of, okay, God, what are you doing? What are you doing in the church, and how can we position ourselves so that we're able to be in that wave and I guess just help as many churches as we possibly can. And we've seen grace in so many different ways. We at one point we changed the name of the company because of a conflict with an American large American company, but that didn't seem to set us back. Whenever we've needed new team members, God has seemed to just bring them out.
Provided that.
Absolutely. And so we're ridiculously blessed, ridiculously covered by His grace in so many ways. So
it's great. It's great. And every church that I visit or speak to who are using ChurchSuite just love the staff. You can pick up the phone, you email in, and people are friendly. They're getting back to you. The whole support that comes, not just the product that you've got, and it's a great product, but the whole package of people that you meet and interact with through the service is just superb.
The team is filled with people who love the church, and that is one of the defining things. Can we do everything? Does our software do everything? No. Do we want to try and help your church find a way of doing what it wants to do with ChurchSuite? Absolutely. We've got people who were church planters on staff. In fact, one of the guys who is team member is in the process of planting a church in Austria at the moment. We've got ex-senior pastors, we've got kids pastors and operations managers. We've just kind of the gamut of Christians who love the church and love technology. This is kind of, in some ways, it's a bit of a space where people are just coming in, and it's a great way of combining technology, which I love and so many people love, with the church, which that's the passion here. And how do we bring the two together to create something that helps churches work well? That's what it's all about for us.
I love it. And one of the passions that I've got for the church office is connecting the kind of practical to the gospel, and kind of drawing those lines and helping people to see it. And what your system does is it really does support the gospel. And the gospel work that happens in churches, and it really is a brilliant toolkit for that. So if we were to focus on some of the aspects of it, so if someone's listening to this, they've not used ChurchSuite, not come across it, and you've got a number of different packages and a number of different functions on it, what are some of those core functions that you do? So you've got the church database, which is a huge part of it. And what else have you got? What other things?
Yes, I mean, in terms of right now, the practicalities of child check-in and rota management, they're less so important. But what hundreds and hundreds of churches are using ChurchSuite for at the minute is being able to manage who is going to come along on a Sunday service in a COVID secure way. So being able to put your Sunday services online and set a capacity for how many people can sign up to attend in person. That's getting massive use at the moment. There's a whole section that we call flows that it's all just about trying to take people through a journey. So it can be that you use a flow to take someone through the process of DBS checking, or maybe it's taking someone through the process of becoming a member in your church. So maybe there's a coffee with an elder, or there's a membership course, and just making sure that people go through the process. But we've heard numerous stories, one even recently, of someone who their church had used ChurchSuite to create an alpha course, put that online, and that person had signed up completely new to faith, or didn't even have faith. And on the back of the alpha course, the church administrator put that person into a flow to help them make sure that they followed up with them, that they would send them an email or send them a text message, give them a phone call. And through that process of just kind of helping them come from the back of the alpha course, finding a home group and starting to serve. And the administrator communicated to us only just a couple of weeks ago, they're like, ChurchSuite, in my opinion, was instrumental in helping us stay organised and stay connected to that person. And that's not to say that the glory there goes to ChurchSuite, absolutely not. But what we love is creating tools and systems that just facilitate what the church is already doing.
There's two aspects. I love those two aspects, because you've got the kind of pastoral tour that you're describing there, where you're discipling people, and there's a process that kind of can record that. And I suppose if you're in a bigger church, and you might meet a couple of pastors for an interview prior to membership, and then have they attended all the membership courses? You're able to track all of that, and that is such a helpful tool. And different pastors can log on and see that flow and of what you're describing, and that is so useful. We've used it, as you said, for DBS checks, and it's so useful to have that kind of reminder that in 6 months' time I've got to get this sorted, and it's on the system, and it's so clearly, and the ability then just to communicate with those who are on that 6 months check, we need to get you sorted, is so easily managed, and the information can go out, and you can start the process really quickly. So there are so many different ways that it does all fit together. Tell me a bit about the kids check-in system and that, because that that people are trying to come up with systems, aren't they, that work, and lots of churches do spend a lot of time on that. So how does ChurchSuite solve it for churches in that aspect?
Well, I guess for any church that's working with children and young people, we need to, in terms of safeguarding, we need to make sure that we're keeping appropriate records. And so we want to try and make it as easy as possible on the Sunday or whenever the event is taking place, to keep that record and making sure that you're giving the child back to the right parent at the end of the day. And it's not just a large church problem. So I've had some conversations where people are like, but that's I know everyone in my church. Well, what happens when God chooses to bless your church and it grows? Actually, now is the time to set up good systems and processes. And so what our system does is, you can either have a kids leader or something like that operating the system from their phone or from a tablet or something, or you can kind of station a computer, which is in your church foyer or something.
Like a reception desk or something.
Yeah, exactly. So children can be registered. It will print a little sticky label for them if you want it to. And then when they go to their group, they can kind of be marked as being in. And then when someone comes to collect them at the end, you can mark them as having left. But with the labels, it will also print out a little pickup label, so that certainly in a context where perhaps you don't know all of the families every week, actually when a parent says, I'm here for this child, not only do you say, well, what's the name of the child, but you can also say, well, can I just see that sticky label and just make sure that the code matches.
It matches up.
So it's just good practice to make sure that you've got the right, an authorised parent collecting the child. And there's all sorts of different scenarios where the attendance on a Sunday is linked to school admission and things like that. And sometimes we because those things we feel like, that only happens once a year. I'll just look through all my paper records and stuff. It's like, but that can take us so much time. So not only do you get kind of security on a Sunday, you get good safeguarding records, but it helps facilitate the questions later on of, is this family disconnecting from church? Like, well, let me just see how frequently their kids have been coming along on a Sunday. They haven't been around much for the last 6 months. Like, that can then...
That triggers a conversation, doesn't
administration
absolutely.
Can help us to then move into pastoral action. And it's all just about trying to make sure that we're loving the people that God has put in our church as best we can.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And one of the other aspects that I love about it is that I spoke to a church pastor the other day, and he was saying to me he has sleepless nights over the GDPR stuff and compliance, and this is genuine. So he's thinking about this when he should be thinking about other areas or getting sleep and rest. And one of the things that it brilliantly does is it maps out who wants to be texted, who wants to be emailed, who doesn't want those things, and people can kind of fill out a form and complete it. And our church has then added all that data to ChurchSuite, and it manages itself. So when you deal with communication, when you're sending out communication, suddenly it's not sending it to those people who don't want that text from the church. And that whole side of it is great. That whole compliance stuff is just brilliant. And such a good aspect of the system.
And that's part of the kingdom, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like in so many ways, we almost feel that GDPR, in some senses, was thrust upon us.
Yeah, it was,
no one wanted GDPR, but actually, it's good because it shows that we as churches, we care about how we're interacting with you. We don't want to be pushing anything on you.
Yeah.
We want you to have an element of kind of preference and control. There are some messages that we do think this is really important.
It's got to go out.
It's stewardship of our people. The data is just as much that as caring for people in other ways.
And that's great. And I think one of the other things that this church does is they've got a rule book and a handbook for church members, and you've got to email the member so many weeks prior to a church meeting, or all those different aspects of communication, and to have a system that actually logs communication, that I can log on and see what emails, what text I've had from the pastoral team, and it stores it in one place. It just, all that evidence that you need sometimes for compliance is all built into the system, and brilliantly done, and that is so helpful, definitely.
And I think the thing is that, if I roll back 15, 20 years or something, every church was kind of isolated, and isolated is the wrong word, but everyone kind of worked in their own little silo. And at conferences, you'd ask someone else, how do you do this? And, we should build that process in. One of what I think great things with ChurchSuite is that we're able to adopt and enable good practice. Simply by having, we've spoken to thousands of different churches, and we, that's not to say, if one church tells us something, we're going to build it in that particular way. But almost out of the box, we've listened to the counsel of so many different churches, how they've done different things, and tried to build in ways to facilitate that. So just starting off, you start ticking the box to say this person wants to receive text messages, this wants to receive email or whatever. It's a simple little thing, but like you say, it instantly gives you that level of compliance, which if you were trying to do everything yourself in Excel or something like that, you just wouldn't have that. So.
You wouldn't have that. And just I love the things like there's a tick box for can you share with other members, and that choice is great to be able to have. And there are some members who don't want that to be out. And if you're in a bigger church, 400 or 500, you don't want everyone to necessarily know all your details. And then how it breaks it all down in terms of small groups. I love that section of it. So if you're in a small group, you can access people's information if they've given permission to do so, and you can interact as a group, and that is just wonderful because new people that join get added into that and immediately can feel part of something because the information is there to use. So that aspect of the kind of the user app, and that is, I think, is great. Tell us a little bit about your thinking on developing that, because the Pastoral Tour is great. A church administrator is wonderful. All these things are covered. You can relax knowing that the system will manage itself as we just add data. So as a church member, what kind of aspects have you built into the system for them?
Yes, there's quite a wide range of, it will vary from church to church based on what the church has chosen to roll out of ChurchSuite in some senses. But obviously you can update and maintain your own details and those of your children.
That's good.
You can sign up for small groups, or look at which groups are geographically close to me, and those kind of things. Find events that are upcoming, and choose to sign up for those. Same with rotas as well. Being able to sign up for a slot on a rota and just say, I'll serve on that week, or I can do this. Marking when you are on holiday or whatever, so your rota organizer knows not to try and put you on a specific week. There's the whole online giving aspect to it as well. So, we've seen an incredible uptake in online giving over the last 12 months, more than ever, really.
Yeah.
And so just through that, you can access your own personal record of giving. So, we've just hit January 31st tax deadline, or what have you.
Yeah.
You can see through the app, you've got the information to your hand right there.
Yeah.
So again, it's just little things like that alleviate some of the burden on the treasurer or whoever who you might previously have needed to say, "Oh, can you give me a record of what I gave in last tax year?" It's right there.
It's all there, isn't it? Yeah. And one of the things that we've added into it, which was relatively simple to do, was that when we're doing COVID risk assessments or something, we want the church to be aware of some of the ways that we're managing it, and be able to put all the kind of risk assessments into that section, so that all church members can go in and access it. Same with things like child protection manuals or policies or procedures, things that we need members to be reminded of, on those practical things. They're all in that system as well, and they can access that through their app and and that really serves a member to, with the information they need, we can equip them to the point where we can deposit it in that account, and they've got access to it, which I do love that. And like you say, it adds the rotas, all the small group information is in there. And you can update your own details. And as a church administrator, I love that. When someone rings the office saying, "Can you update this?" And maybe the information doesn't get transcribed properly or added properly, or all those kind of things. So no, you do it yourself, and I love that.
My colleague Paul so he led a church down in Bournemouth for a number of years, and he always used to describe how he needed the spiritual gift of handwriting discernment. When someone puts through the post, "I've changed my mobile number," you're reading like, is that a 1? Is that a 7? Is that a 3? Is it an 8? And actually, it just takes out some of that ambiguity. And the same would be for when we're meeting physically on Sunday. Many people would previously have done like paper connect sheets. Whereas one of the things that we've got is the ability for you to kind of build your own form as a way of connecting with people for the first time. And again, not only does it mean that the data goes straight into the system, but it just takes out the passing of the paper from. My wife works at our church, and back in the paper days, there used to be a system whereby if someone filled out the form and they ticked, "I'm interested in a small group," or "I'm interested in kids events," "I'm interested in membership," whatever it might be. One staff member would get it and do something, then they'd put it in someone else's pigeonhole.
Absolutely right.
And then they would do what they need to do and put it in someone else's. And it's just that thing of let's and everything happened kind of synchronously in one person, then the next, then the next. Whereas actually some of these tools and things that we've been built in mean that actually stuff can happen asynchronously with multiple different people kind of fulfilling their role and helping to engage that new person in different ways without it needing to wait for someone else to have done it in the first place.
I love that, because you're describing something that I just think, we used to do that, and it used to go from one pigeonhole to the next, and the response time for the person was like, 4 weeks ago they signed up for this, and has anyone got back to them? And it's like, what's going on here? That does ring a bell, and I'm sure with other administrators and other people who are working behind the scenes, it does. Gavin, if I'm honest, one of the modules that we haven't used at Christchurch is the planning module, and so maybe you can educate me as we do this interview as to what the planning module's about, and how it can be used, and how it affects churches, and how it can be useful. What do you think, mate? Over to you.
Well, okay. So it is our newest module. So that's why you haven't used it.
Okay, there we are. So that's fine.
No, it's come about because a number of churches have asked us to help them with basically organising what is going to happen during a Sunday service, or whenever your services might be, and for the vast majority of churches, there's going to be some kind of run sheet or order, something that you're going to work through. You don't just stand up and. Most churches don't stand up and go off a whim of the whole thing. So the whole idea of the planning module is that you have a plan. That's what we call it. You might call it a run sheet or whatever it might be. And historically, you might have been doing that in Excel or something like that. And so within ChurchSuite, you've got your plan. And you've got all of the different individual items. So you know when the notices are coming up and who's going to do them. And you know who's going to be leading worship and which songs they're going to do. You know who we're going to interview and who's going to be preaching, and prayer ministry afterwards or whatever it might be. Happening. And so not only do you get to drag and drop in each of those different items, but you can also link them onto a rota. So, for instance, you might need to know who's your first aider and who's opening the church building and those kind of things. So you can add an item to your plan, link that to a rota, and then as that rota changes, as people swap on different dates and what have you, the plan automatically updates for you, so you know exactly who is responsible for those different things. And you can drag in documents, you can put your chord charts on there. The worship team can then change if they want to do it in a different key and those kind of things. But it's all about trying to streamline that process of having a plan and then being able to share it easily with different people who need to know. And so just like when you create an event, you get an event page, and that's where people sign up. With plans, once you've created a plan and you publish it, you have a plan page, which the link for that you can email out or whatever, and just so that anyone who needs to know what's going on and what the order is, who the person who's running pro presenter at your church, and the person who's on sound, and the kids team, so they know, when's the dedications or whatever it might be. You can just share that with people, and because it's ChurchSuite, it's live and it updates. So someone goes and moves the order of something, it updates. You don't need to have those endless chains of Friday night, here's Sunday final XLS, and then Saturday morning you get Sunday final 01 XLS because someone's changed something, and then Sunday morning you've got Sunday final. People, because it's all being done within ChurchSuite and people are accessing the plan page, actually you've got a definitive guide of what's there is what's going to happen. So does that help?
Yeah, that absolutely helps. Yeah, it's useful because I think I can spend Sunday morning running around trying to have a conversation with so-and-so, conversation with different groups, making sure all your teams are in place, and to actually have a single sheet to go to of here's the running order, here's the plan. We've been in situations once before where we've got a parent call out, but the parent isn't in the room in the main hall, and so we're scrambling to try and find rotas. They're on builders? Oh, they're upstairs serving in the kids ministry. So in actual fact, that would probably solve a lot of those conversations that are needed at the start. It'll give everyone the information they need for that one day, and I think that's helpful. So I will go away and try it, and I will let you know how I get on with it.
You've got my number.
I've got your number, I'll give you a bell. But the planning stuff is great, right? So I'll give that a try. One of the aspects that our designers love and is the integration tools. So the link with MailChimp, the link with the text local, all the other links to if you need to take money for a conference or an event that you're running and you're organising food and there's a charge, you can easily do that. You can integrate the calendar into your own website and it all talks and links together, and all of that makes sense to some tech person in our church, and grateful for them. So you guys have worked hard to link it with these different systems, and you've taken the tools that churches use. You might use MailChimp independently, and you've brought it into your system. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the difference that's making and how that works?
Well, so I mean, with all of these things, there's only so far either we can go or we choose to go. So we can't process debit card transactions in and of ourselves. We have to integrate with a third party. So we use Stripe or GoCardless for doing those kind of things. Text messages, we can't send text messages ourselves, so we integrate with Text Local to enable churches to, when it snows and suddenly you need to send that text message. Oh my goodness, don't come to church. No one can get there. It's a great way of doing that kind of broadcast message. And then, there are other integrations. So you say MailChimp. Well, we send 2 to 3 million emails every single month on behalf of our customers, which is a bit crazy, really.
Mega amount of
it's quite a lot of email. But we are not MailChimp, and we're not trying to do what they're doing. They are an email marketing tool. And for people who want some very, very particular layouts and what have you, that's not part of what ChurchSuite is. So we've got some great templates, and hundreds of churches
people do use those.
Absolutely, like 2-3 million emails a month. Like it's a lot of traction that we get through that. But we've kind of said, well, we're not going to try and compete with MailChimp because they're MailChimp. But if you want to use them alongside ChurchSuite, great. We can make it easy for you to push groups of people or whatever into a MailChimp list, so that you can continue using that tool if that's what you want from your emails.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think all your there's online help of how to do that, and people have options that need to choose which ones they want to integrate with and not, and there's how-to guides of how to do that, and we've drawn in our tech guys from the church to be able to kind of get those things in place, and all of that works really well. And yeah, I do think it's useful. I do think it's useful. We have managed databases and everything that ChurchSuite, well, some of the aspects that ChurchSuite does behind the scenes with our local guys, members in the church who are techie minded, who are really good, and the tech team who kind of have organised loads and loads of databases for us in the past. And it's great when it's working, and then when something goes wrong, it is a bit of a headache. And as a church administrator, you know, being able to kind of call whether I should call or shouldn't call, they're working, they've got family, they've got other stuff going on. It's difficult, isn't it, to kind of make those calls, and to have an independent system that's organised by yourselves. If something goes wrong, I can get on the phone quickly to you guys and get it resolved. And that is an important factor in this, isn't it?
Definitely. And so often that person who has historically, you know, done your website and got a database up for you, they've probably also done your sound and some video, maybe some lighting.
Multitasking.
They've set up your church network. And actually, you know, there's so much resting on that one person. You know, bus factors of, you know, we've got a bus factor of one. You know, they leave the church for some reason, you know, they get a new job in a different city. Where are you left, and how do you pick up the pieces? And so, we would certainly suggest that having a system like ChurchSuite is just a good way of reducing some of the strain on that technically minded person. They just have one less thing that they need to worry about on a day-to-day basis. By all means, engage with them and get their input and help in setting things up and investigating different things for you and that kind of stuff. But in terms of the day-to-day, it's probably not necessary. But and then it frees that person up to be involved with ministry.
Yes, absolutely right.
Now, for someone who is technically minded, I for years, it was assumed that I would want to be doing
serving
camera or sound or whatever it might be. I also love people, and the beauty of ChurchSuite is it just means that if you take that responsibility from someone, you trust us to help you manage those things. Actually, you can then engage that technically minded person with another area of ministry that they can love and contribute to the kingdom in.
Yeah, absolutely right. No, that's absolutely great. One of the obstacles, I suppose, for us starting ChurchSuite was a couple of things. So the free trial that you guys offer, and the kind of monthly subscription. And those, as church administrators, are the kind of the first obstacles you've got to go through to get, you know, your pastoral team to sit down and have a conversation about kind of going with this kind of software. And, you know, having thought about the subscription, you guys charge a subscription. It's based on the size of the church, so it's varied. And, you know, we were having a conversation before just saying how much time has been saved by having ChurchSuite in place, that we also need to factor in the cost of staffing time that's been saved, even though we're paying a monthly subscription, you know. And I think our default can be, I just need to buy some software, and then it's a one-off purchase and then it's done. But the kind of world has changed, isn't it, with subscriptions, and even Microsoft and all these other ones that you pay a monthly amount or a yearly subscription, and that's the system updates and all those kind of things. So I think we pay around £45 to £55, something like that, a month. But it does save us a load of time. So all the rotas are in place, all the groups, all the information, all that we need to help the church to function well is all in one place.
I think there's so many kind of aspects to that. You know, I've spoken with church administrators who have said, when I compare us using ChurchSuite with another similarly sized church, that they're doing things on Excel or whatever it might be, they've got twice as much administration time or staff built into their budgets. And so we know for a fact, it's not sales speak, it's what people have told us.
It's true, isn't it?
You have saved us time. We're able to do things we were never able to do before. But also, it comes back to having resilient systems that can be passed on from one person to the next. You know, there is a relatively high amount of turnover in anywhere, and you know, not everyone is 18 years on the job like yourself.
No,
that's just not the reality. And having systems in place that ChurchSuite in place that underpins the administration and communication means that actually a new person could come in. And they don't have to reinvent everything. So you've got much better continuity for the ministry that is going on behind the scenes.
And the value, there is great value for money, and I know there are other systems on the market and charge different prices. Yeah, not as good as yours, of course. You can pay me later, but no, but they, I think you've got to get over that subscription charge, and I think it is, you do get value for money, and you're right, the staff time is saved, and just the effectiveness of it is great. The kind of the church member side, the pastoral discipleship side, the operational side, it just works right across all of those. And
I think I would say, from my perspective, it would be great if it was all free.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah, it'd be great.
But at the end of the day, we know that we value what we pay for.
Yeah.
And so actually there's instantly an inherent link between I'm paying for that, I want to get the most from it.
Yeah.
But also just coming all the way back to the GDPR conversation we had, if everything was free, what would stop you from trying out loads of different systems, forgetting where you've left all of your data? And suddenly you've kind of got a bit of a GDPR nightmare I've got 5 different systems, I've got my data spread around. It's like, actually, that's not kingdom. That's not stewarding the data of the people that we love in a loving way. So I think, yes, there is a cost. There's got to be a cost. But it also can be something that helps us to remember this is of value to us.
No, it's true. And I love the fact that you're not just going to stand still and take the subscription and that's kind of ChurchSuite. It is what it is. But you are developing. So the planning module is a new module that you're developing. What kind of future things are we going to see from ChurchSuite? How much can you disclose today in this interview? Because I suppose you're interacting with 2,000 plus churches. You are a humble guy, and I know that as you receive feedback, and I've seen it on some forums where you've received feedback, you've gone and intentionally sought that feedback, listened to it, and gone, what can we tweak? What can we apply here? How can we do this better? And I love that about you, and that flows from you down through your organisation. So future, tell me.
Yeah. I'm never short of an idea. I can sometimes drive the rest of the team up the wall with the ideas. And I think right now, because of COVID, actually we've seen so much change in church.
Yes.
And I think this is the beginning of things continuing to change. So some of the questions we're asking are, what does it look like for our systems and processes to be entirely touch-free?
Okay.
What does touch-free child check-in look like? Because that's clearly going to be a concern. We've already adapted things like event sign-up to better support Sunday service sign-up and being able to cancel and things like that. But another kind of question would be, what does training and discipleship look like now that a lot of stuff has shifted online and probably will continue with this online-offline hybrid? So what do we need to do? So I showed some people a kind of a concept idea of how could we create online training platform through ChurchSuite that church members can access courses and engage with discipleship through that. There's all massive projects that we've got ongoing of being able to create more kind of customizable forms and things like that. Honestly, the list goes on and on and on. How can we better facilitate? What can we do to improve member-to-member communication or communication within groups and rotas? And there's for us, I keep on saying, it's written on the wall behind me, this is just the beginning. We're 8 years in, whatever it might be. But we're still just scratching the surface because the church is alive, and something that is alive is changing. And our role is to continue building software and services that support the church, this living, breathing, changing, evolving organism that we absolutely love, that God created. So the future for us is just trying to make sure that we keep on building tools that do justice to the church and really help.
And that's right. And I think you listen so well. You're partnering with churches. You're enabling churches. It's great. I love talking to you about some of the stories and some of the evidences of grace, if you like, that are surrounded ChurchSuite. Give me a couple of your top highlights, top stories where you've heard the difference that ChurchSuite have made, I'm putting you on the spot here.
You are putting me on the spot.
To think of it.
So one of them, I wasn't present, but one of our team, our head of customer care, Paul, was doing some training on site at a church, and he was showing the child check-in system. And as he was showing it, he noticed that someone in the room, I don't remember the very specific details, but let's say there was a dozen people there. Yeah. There was a lady who he just noticed she was actually now crying. She was like sobbing. He was like, "I'm really sorry.
What have I done?"
And she just said, "I'm the kids pastor.
Yeah.
The other people in the room here don't understand the pressures that I experience on a Sunday, needing to know, have I got enough team? Are we over ratio in the groups? Who's allowed to pick up who? All that responsibility rests on me." Yeah. And she was like, "But I can see that this system," and they weren't using the child check-in system at that time. She's like, "This is going to save me so much pain on a weekly basis."
And stress and everything
else. And it's like, how amazing to know that we've built software, but that software genuinely is going to change how she feels every Sunday morning when she wakes up. It's going to facilitate ministry in a way that they were running up against obstacles and barriers at the time. So that was definitely one. And
I love that.
Other stories I've heard have been lots of things like just people becoming more engaged with the church. The newcomer who fills in that online connect form. And there was one guy called Ben who he emailed through, and he just said, "I've only been using ChurchSuite for a month, but I need you to know how it has already transformed our newcomer process."
Yeah, love that.
And I'm like, "Okay, what's that then?" He was like, in the process of setting up the flow, I decided, how frequently and how I wanted to reach out to different people who have filled in this connect form. He was like, "Never before had I thought about it in a structured way. It was more kind of, I get a form, and then if I've got time that week, then I'll do it." It was like, no, when I created the flow, I set out with kind of my best intentions of, I want to email them, I want to phone them, or whatever it might be. And he said that there was one person who had filled in the form, and then he'd kind of tried to email them, didn't get a response, and he'd kind of moved them on to the next stage of the flow. And he'd tried phoning them, didn't get a response. And he said at that stage, normally he would have just given up on them. But he said, no, when I set up this flow, I set out my best intentions, and there was kind of a reach out to them again kind of thing. And he had reached out to them, and that time I think they did pick up the phone, and they said to him, I'm so surprised you're still following up with me, because I would have given up on me if I was you. And he was like, no, this is how I want you to know that we love you, we want you in the church. And for them, that communication of we love you, and him having followed the process that he chose to reach out to them, he was like, I would never have done that normally, but that has made the difference between that person not coming back to the church and now and they had gone on to become a member of the church and were there. He was like, that was me just using the software, but it helped me engage with the person who otherwise I would have stopped. And that's just one of, I don't know how many stories, but we just regularly hear from customers who are like, this has made a genuine difference. And for us, it's humbling, because when we build a system, we want it to make a difference, but we don't know that it's going to be. I can't sit here and guarantee, use ChurchSuite and every newcomer will integrate. I can't do that.
It's going to be amazing.
But it's just exciting that it's like, no, the software has kind of helped you in your role, and now. And that's made a kingdom difference. That's made an eternal difference for some people.
Oh, massively.
It's just mind-blowing.
Yeah, it is. And it just makes such a difference. And I think if you're a church administrator or you're working behind the scenes, if you're a pastor and you don't have someone in a kind of, or maybe you've got some support in a voluntary role, then do explore this, because you've got support there from ChurchSuite to implement some of these things, to implement this system. And there's lots of how-to videos, lots of stuff online that people can access to to put it into place. You don't need an administrator to do it, do you? You don't need that. You don't need that present in the church. One other question. Is this just a big church thing? Now, I'm sure you've heard that before. Gavin, great, you're part of a bigger church and it works for you, it's great. What about if you've got 50 people and you're paying £5 or £10 a month, whatever the subscription is? How would you answer that question?
I would say that we have we do have huge churches using ChurchSuite, but equally the number of church plants that go off and use it is massive as well.
Yes.
ChurchSuite, because we're not saying you have to have the whole system. You choose just the parts that you want to use.
That you need for you. Yeah.
And so you choose those, and maybe you're a church plant. Well, you're probably not, or you might not yet be running Sunday services, but you are running home groups. So there's immediately bits of functionality that you don't need. So don't take those bits yet. Don't use them. The reality is, though, we know that it makes a difference across the board. Like communication is probably one of the greatest challenges of any church of any size.
Yes.
Regardless of whether you're a plant, you've been going 20 years and you've got 80 or 100 people or whatever it might be, or you're a massive church. Communication is so
vital,
crucial.
Yeah,
and ChurchSuite can help with that. So no, we've got churches from all denominations and all sizes using ChurchSuite, and from everything that is being said back to us, and it's certainly our intention that it's an effective tool for churches of all sizes, all stages, all denominations.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, because you can think of I've got 40 people in my church. I can manage this easily through Excel or something like that, and that's probably true. But as the church grows, it's some of these things and these structures that don't get developed and re-looked at, and suddenly you're in a situation where it's very difficult to manage it. And I think I would certainly personally recommend that people take it on for a small church. I love the fact that church planters are using it, and it's a wonderful tool for that. And I think that will make a big difference, mate.
And what we know from kind of those who have studied churches and how they evolve and grow over time is that you can only grow to the extent that your systems and processes will allow you.
Yeah.
And so actually, you need to be ahead of the curve in some senses, and always pushing on it. And so, if your administration is so great that there's a new person in the church who wants to join a rota, but actually your rotas are all in a mess and it's just difficult, then it communicates to them that there isn't space for you. And that is a role of administration, to make sure that there is space for people, that there are processes to help them engage. So regardless of your size, we always need to make sure that we've got capacity and processes both for the stage we're at, but also, we've got to believe and hope that God is going to choose to grow our churches, and people are going to come to faith. And how do we then choose to integrate them in? So it's absolutely it's an all church problem, not just a big church problem.
Yeah, good, excellent. One of the other things is that I've noticed on your website is you offer the free trial, and I think we took you up on the free trial when we started. And it was helpful, but I understand from church administrators or deacons or trustees that are trying to move forward and implement something like this, it can take longer than the 30 days. It might take you 2 weeks to get a conversation with your pastor about and then you've got to speak to the treasurer, and then you've got to get the commitment for the funding and all those kind of things. So it does take time, and there is that flexibility with ChurchSuite, and there is that support with ChurchSuite, which I do love. So don't let that be a kind of hurdle or an obstacle for you not engaging and seeing is this the right software for your church, and will it work going forward?
Absolutely. We know churches.
You get it.
We understand church. We know that sometimes things can drift a little bit, and there's flexibility there. We know that we have some people saying, at the end of our 30 days, we've already got commitment that we're going to go ahead and we're going to start paying. But our treasurer is going to be on holiday, and will we lose all of our data on day 31 when it's like
it's just going to be switched off?
No, we know church. We love we're doing this because we love the church. This is not about us saying here's a fixed hard deadline. Obviously there have to be deadlines and kind of markers in the sand of okay, well we've reached this point. Let's make a decision here. Nothing can go on and on and on forever. But there's flexibility because we know church, and the purpose of this is to try and support the church.
Well, great. Well, I just have loved talking to you, loved coming here and seeing the base, and often on the end of the phone to Richard, having a chat to him. But it's lovely to be here, and thank you for your time. And I just want to encourage you and all the staff that are working here. Just do a wonderful job that you've done in creating a software that really does serve churches. And I know that personally, it's served me and it's served our church. And just a thrill to be here today. And I'm sure the church office and ChurchSuite work together in years to come and encourage people in gospel ministry and supporting the church to move forward. And I love that. So thank you, Gavin, for your time.
No problem at all. Lovely to meet you.
Okay.